why Homelander betrayed Soldier Boy, why he's hunting Sage, and the dark truth behind his godhood. If you thought episode 7 of The Boys was just another chaotic setup episode before the finale, you missed the real story. Because hidden underneath all the violence, politics, shocking deaths, and insane Homelander moments, this episode was secretly about one thing: faith. Not superhero faith, religious faith. And once you notice the hidden clues scattered throughout the episode, everything suddenly starts connecting together. The church music, the crown imagery, the divine unveiling, the Jesus symbolism, Homelander sitting inside the Oval Office like a king chosen by destiny, even Soldier Boy calling him not a god. None of these moments were random. Episode 7 is quietly revealing that Homelander is no longer trying to rule America, he's trying to replace God. And honestly, that might explain why he betrayed Soldier Boy, why he suddenly became obsessed with finding Sister Sage, and why the finale could end with Homelander completely losing his mind. Because this isn't just about power anymore. It's about belief. And the scariest part is, Homelander finally found millions of people willing to worship him. So in this breakdown, we're diving deep into the hidden clues, the psychological details most fans missed, the real reason Soldier Boy got betrayed, how V1 may secretly be changing Homelander mentally, why Sage is terrified, and how Kimiko might become the key to ending this entire nightmare. Because after episode 7, The Boys isn't building toward a normal superhero finale. It's building toward a religious apocalypse. The episode immediately tells us this through the opening scene. At first glance, the musical number feels ridiculous and hilarious in classic The Boys fashion. But look closer. The visuals are extremely deliberate. Homelander isn't being presented as a celebrity anymore. He's being presented like a holy figure. There are church choirs, religious gestures, worship imagery, devoted followers singing his praises like gospel music, and then the biggest clue of all, the crown symbolism. Throughout the episode, Homelander is repeatedly framed like royalty mixed with divinity. The camera angles constantly place him above everyone else. Characters literally look upward at him. Even the way people speak around him has changed. Nobody says leader, nobody says hero. They speak about him like salvation itself. That's important because Homelander's entire emotional journey has always revolved around one thing: wanting love. People think Homelander is driven purely by ego, but that's not completely true. His ego is actually a shield protecting something much sadder. Homelander is emotionally starving. He grew up without parents, without affection, without human connection, without anyone genuinely caring about him. He was raised like a product, a weapon, an experiment, and because of that, he became addicted to approval. That's why crowds cheering for him affects him emotionally more than physical victories ever do. It's also why rejection completely destroys him psychologically. And episode 7 gives us the clearest example of that yet through Soldier Boy. A lot of fans expected Homelander and Soldier Boy to finally become some twisted father-son duo after the V1 injection. But the second Soldier Boy admits the truth, everything falls apart. Because Soldier Boy reveals he didn't give Homelander V1 out of love. He did it because of Stormfront. That line completely destroys Homelander emotionally. And this is where the hidden psychology becomes fascinating. Homelander didn't just want the V1. He wanted what the V1 represented: acceptance, validation, fatherly approval. For one tiny moment, Homelander probably imagined having the relationship he never had growing up. But Soldier Boy immediately crushes that fantasy. He basically tells him, "You're still not special." And for Homelander, that's unbearable. Because despite all his power, Homelander is still emotionally a terrified child, desperate for parental love. That's why the betrayal scene becomes so disturbing. Soldier Boy says he's leaving, no bonding, no family, no emotional connection, just abandonment. Again, and abandonment is Homelander's greatest trauma. Every important relationship in his life eventually leaves him. Stillwell, Maeve, Noir, Stormfront, Ryan emotionally distancing himself. Even Ashley fears him instead of loving him. So when Soldier Boy rejects him too, Homelander reacts the only way he knows how: control. That's the hidden meaning behind him putting Soldier Boy back into cryostasis instead of killing him. If Soldier Boy stays frozen, Homelander never truly loses him. It's deeply pathetic and deeply tragic at the same time. Because underneath all the God imagery, Homelander is still just a lonely child, terrified of being abandoned. Now let's talk about the biggest mystery in the episode. Did V1 actually work? Because the show intentionally avoids confirming it, and that feels very deliberate. We never see Homelander suddenly gain crazy new powers, no glowing transformation, no giant power upgrade, no dramatic reveal. So why hide it? Because I think the writers want us focusing on something else, the mental transformation. After taking V1, Homelander starts acting differently. Not physically stronger, spiritually convinced. That's the key difference. He starts talking less like a dictator and more like a prophet. That divine unveiling line is incredibly important because it sounds less like a political speech and more like a religious revelation. Homelander genuinely believes he's evolving beyond humanity, and the church is feeding that delusion perfectly. This is actually one of the darkest themes The Boys has ever explored, the danger of mass worship. Because once millions of people stop seeing a leader as human and start seeing them as divine, anything becomes justifiable. Violence, camps, executions, authoritarian rule. And episode 7 shows Homelander slowly crossing that line. The terrifying part isn't that he kills the president. The terrifying part is that he barely reacts emotionally afterward. There's no guilt, no hesitation, no shock, just disappointment. Like an angry god punishing a disobedient follower. That's why this episode feels so unsettling compared to earlier seasons. Homelander isn't acting like a reckless celebrity anymore. He's acting like someone who believes morality no longer applies to him. And this connects directly into Sister Sage, because Homelander suddenly searching for Sage isn't random at all. Sage represents the one thing Homelander can't fully control: truth. Everybody else either worships him or fears him. Sage studies him, analyzes him, understands him. And I think Homelander secretly craves her approval more than almost anyone else's. Why? Because if the smartest person alive validates him, then maybe he really is special. Maybe he really is chosen. Maybe he really is a god. But here's the twist. I think Sage is terrified of what Homelander is becoming. Look at her behavior this episode. She's emotionally exhausted, detached, escaping reality through junk food and self-lobotomizing. That's not failure. That's hopelessness. And the hidden clue is her conversation with Frenchie. This scene is way more important than people realize. Frenchie explains that love cannot be calculated logically. That's the exact thing Sage failed to predict. She underestimated emotion. She assumed Soldier Boy's hatred for Homelander would outweigh everything else. But love for Stormfront changed the outcome. That completely shattered Sage's worldview. For someone obsessed with intelligence and logic, love became the one variable she couldn't solve. And honestly, that might be the entire message of the season. Homelander sees love as ownership. Butcher sees love as sacrifice. Frenchie sees love as healing. Kimiko sees love as hope. Sage sees love as chaos. And Soldier Boy sees love as weakness. Every character is reflecting a different version of it. Now let's talk about Kimiko, because I think episode 7 secretly confirmed she'll play a massive role in the finale. Butcher's new plan sounds insane on paper. Recreate Soldier Boy's radiation evolution by exposing Kimiko to uranium. But narratively, it makes perfect sense, because Soldier Boy's blast represents the opposite of Homelander's ideology. Homelander wants absolute power. Soldier Boy's blast removes power. It reduces Supes back to humanity. And that's poetic, because the only way to stop Homelander may be forcing him to become human again, not killing him, humanizing him. And Frenchie dying for that possibility makes the storyline even more emotional. His death wasn't just shock value, it was motivation. Frenchie gave Kimiko something Homelander never truly experienced: unconditional love. That matters, because every season of The Boys keeps repeating the same hidden idea: power without humanity creates monsters. Homelander lost his humanity years ago. Kimiko is slowly reclaiming hers. That contrast feels intentional. But the wildest theory of all still revolves around Stormfront, because this season keeps bringing her up constantly. Soldier Boy mentioning Clara wasn't random. The church ideology mirrors her beliefs perfectly, and Homelander's obsession with superiority sounds exactly like her influence. Honestly, I think Stormfront's legacy is the real villain of this season. Even dead, she's still shaping Homelander's worldview. She's the person who convinced him he wasn't just powerful, he was superior, chosen, destined. And now Homelander has fully embraced that identity. That's why he's becoming so dangerous. Not because of lasers,